then came a time in 2016 when my mother passed away suddenly, and I kind of put the time out on everything and said, I just can't. Took a step back and really searched for what would kind of give me more energy. And it was the creative side. I had started out before psychology and art history and had always gone, my volunteerism and everything always went towards that creative side and helping people with that. And that's how I got into floral design. So as you do, PhD, started a luxury floral design business. And my husband and I had actually been at the very first 4 or 5 underground kitchens. And Michael and I ran into each other again. And he said, what are you doing? I said, flowers. And he said, come do flowers with me. So that was kind of the beginning of all that. And now here we are.
A tribute to my mom. Every week, Kate would do more and more and more.
Because he didn't know how to set a table.
Nothing like you all Southern women.
My mother would have.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So my mom called me one day. She says, "Fool, if you don't make her a business partner, you're an idiot." So here she is.
That's why we love
and it was
Margie.
the best decision that I ever made.
Welcome to America's Healthiest City. I am Will Melton, your host. I am excited to bring the show to you today and introduce you to our guests, the wonderful Micheal Sparks and Kate Houck from Underground Kitchen, Community First, and so many other things. America's Healthiest City is a 10-year initiative to make Richmond the healthiest city in the nation. And we know that in order to do this, we have to engage the entire community and a multitude of ideas to move the needle. So we're bringing people from the community who are moving the needle in to tell their stories and to encourage all of us to move in the direction that we need to go to make this happen. I realize that not everybody may see this idea as one that's achievable, so we hope to change hearts and minds through these stories. So Kate and Mike, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
So I will start out just by kind of giving the audience a background on each of you. If you want to just tell us a little bit about yourself, Micheal. I'll start with you. I know that you both have very storied histories.
Yeah.
From in your wheelhouse, fashion to marketing to food and art and culture and so many other things. So I'll let you say it in your words.
Yeah, I'll give you the short term sort of thing. I spent many years in fashion. Fell in love and left Europe and came back to the United States and met a doctor who been partners with for almost 18 years. Lived in New York for 5 years, and he got a job offer to move to Virginia, to Richmond in 2009. And I decided to move on down to Beverly, and we moved down here and bought a house in the museum district. And during that period, sort of wanting a career change, I was doing some consulting in fashion and design and wanted a little change. And in order to meet our neighbors, I started throwing dinner parties in our house. And those dinner parties turned into what is now known as the Underground Kitchen, which is celebrating our 11th year anniversary. After the success of the Underground Kitchen, COVID came. And we decided we had a refrigerator full of food and a bunch of chefs that couldn't work. And we decided that we were going to feed a nonprofit, Kate and I. And Kate, during that whole 11 years, Kate, year 6, debatable 5, 6, or 7, Kate became my business partner. And we had always talked about, when we get the time, that we're going to open a nonprofit and do this and help the community. And essentially, COVID gave us that time to slow down. And although COVID brought so many bad things for us and for the whole rest of the world, I think that it also brought on some really great things. And Underground Kitchen Community First was born through COVID. And under Kate's leadership, we've served over 275,000 meals since the beginning of 2020. And Kate can tell you more about that in her career.
Well, food is such a pivotal part to health as individuals and as a society. So we'll talk a lot about food in today's episode. And Kate, I obviously you got to do a little bit of research on people before you start interviewing them. And even though I know you two, I did not know that you had a PhD. I did remember that you had a background in flowers and design there. So I'm sure there's even more of the consultancy and the list goes on. So
she's not just a pretty face.
Brains.
She has a brain.
Yeah, so I got my PhD in clinical psychology at UVA back in the 90s and practiced at a women's prison for several years, helping to run their inpatient hospital there before I decided I needed a change. I had 2 young kids at home and my whole family was in Richmond and I was commuting up to Charlottesville every day and that just got to be too much. And so I went into consulting, traveled all around the nation, doing consulting for all kinds of different businesses, from mining to healthcare to casinos, everything. And when I decided to come off the road, because I had said I'd build up the Richmond market, my boss at the time said, okay. And that's when I ended up in Alaska for the first time. That next week I was in Anchorage consulting. And so my husband and I went into financial consulting together. And then came a time in 2016 when my mother passed away suddenly. And I kind of put the time out on everything and said, I just can't. Took a step back and really searched for what would kind of give me more energy. And it was the creative side. I had started out before psychology and art history and had always gone, my volunteerism and everything always went towards that creative side and helping people with that. And that's how I got into floral design. So as you do, PhD, started a luxury floral design business. And my husband and I had actually been at the very first 4 or 5 underground kitchens. And Michael and I ran into each other again. And he said, what are you doing? I said, flowers. And he said, come do flowers with me. So that was kind of the beginning of all that. And now here we are.
A tribute to my mom. 'Cause
Yeah.
every week Kate would do more and more and more.
Because he didn't know how to set a table.
Yeah. Nothing like you all Southern women.
My mother would have
Exactly.
rolled, yeah.
So my mom called me one day. She says, "Fool, if you don't make her a business partner, you're an idiot." So here she is.
That's why we
And
love
it was
Margie.
the best decision that I ever made.
Thank you.
Now, before you two met, did Pop-Up Revolution exist?
Yes. Yeah.
I
it
think we
came-
had met around that time too.
Yeah, around
That
that
was
time
the
too.
era of Christmas parties.
And yeah.
Now, did that give birth to the Underground Kitchen?
It was an
How did that work?
LLC that I owned specifically for one big event, and it was so easy just to turn it over to UGK when it was time, and not really realizing what we were doing was more experiential. Experience dining more than a pop-up, because a lot of people say, oh, remember that pop-up that goes on? We're really not a pop-up, and we're not caterers for sure. For our for-profit, where we give folks an experience. We tell a story with our meals, and that story goes with who the farmers are, how it's delivered,
Who our chefs are.
who our chefs are,
Mhm.
and how it's a whole experience, which makes us a little different and had really prepared us more than we knew for UGK Community First,
Mhm.
because by that time we knew all the vendors, we had gotten the attention of a lot of major corporations that really were interested in what we're doing.
Well, and at the same time, I described us as Underground Kitchen as a traveling like food carnival. We would roll into town, set up the tent, do our thing. In that respect, we were a pop-up, but went from city to city. So we were really adept at pivoting and figuring out how to do stuff on the fly, because it never mattered how much we planned for anything, something always went wrong.
Right.
We'd get to a city and something would go wrong and we
Right.
would have to figure it out. And so it wasn't anything in our heads when COVID came and we said we need to, start getting food out to people. We just did, because that's what you do.
Right, exactly what we do, and not in that volume. The first week, I think
No.
we served 150 meals.
175
75
meals.
meals, yeah. And then, since then, like I said, 275,000. And I still think about that today, and I think Kate does too. And I don't know how we did.
Nope.
I mean,
But that's-
quality, beautiful, wholesome, as close
Yeah.
to free range and organic food for free.
Yeah, and people have asked us that before, and we said if we stopped long enough to think about it, we would.
We quit.
I would say it's like when I learned to play the piano. Once I realized both hands were going at the same time, I'd screw it all up,
Right.
because I had to go into that Zen spot. That's kind of where we went.
That's right.
Just let
At the beginning
let
of
work
COVID.
lead.
Yeah, and it was
That's right.
just really, and I get Kate and I delivered the food the first week ourselves. to 175 houses
Mhm.
and people all around Virginia. I can't even tell you how many miles we put on our cars. But Kate and I came back and that Friday glass of wine, and we're like, dude, did you see this? And did you see that? And did you see this? And like, it was just, and that was from every spectrum, because in the beginning, it wasn't just people with disparities, but it was older people in Windsor Farms who needed food, who were afraid to go out. It was the whole spectrum
Mhm.
of Virginia and greater Richmond area. And Kate looked at me and she says, we can't stop this.
Well,
And then,
as you know, we talk a lot. We talk to everybody
yeah,
that we dropped soups off to as much as we could, from our car to their porch. Or I had a couple people who were shut in for medical reasons. And one woman would hold all of her 8 cats up one at a time, and we'd wave and like scream through the windows at each other. So we got
The
to
cats
hear.
appreciated that,
I'm sure they did. Yeah, they had their cat trees in the window. I mean, but we got to know everybody those first couple weeks when we were doing deliveries, and the stories that you'd hear and the outpouring of just thanks for remembering we're out here was profound.
Yeah.
It really hit both of us
that's right.
deeply, and we said we don't know what we're doing, but we can't stop doing it. We got to figure out
That's
pretty
right.
quickly what we're doing,
That's right.
because now we got to keep going.
And donations started pouring in from the public, and Richmond supported, and then people around, even our clients, all nationally,
Mhm.
sort of started just throwing money at us, not throwing money at us, but we, sort of giving without us even asking. And our attorney said it's probably time that you guys become a 501c3. And I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, the fun part, right?
So,
Yeah.
right. And, with COVID, everything pivoted. Everything was pivoting all the time. It was like, oh, you couldn't go out. You can go out. You couldn't go out. Wear 10 masks. Wash your hands. It was just the whole gamut. And I remember that whole first week that everything started shutting down and we were delivering. And it looked like that Will Smith movie when it was the apocalypse and he was the only one on the street.
Mhm.
And it was just us. And we got permission from the mayor's office to be able to be one of the be part of the group of the emergency workers who were the only ones allowed to travel on the street. But having said all that, that's what we did during COVID. And now that we're going into post-COVID, which has become really interesting, where we found our niche. We found exactly what we want to do. We want to really concentrate on food and food education and concentrate on our elderly as a main focus going forward.
You're listening to America's Healthiest City on ESPN Richmond. I'm your host, Will Melton, and I have Kate Houck and Micheal Sparks, some really wonderful community philanthropists here in the studio today. I want to talk more about what you guys are doing now post-COVID, because I know you have some interesting partnerships going on. And I want to talk a little bit about the health component, because you've heard me say this before in this 10-year initiative, recognizing that health is about more than physical well-being. We have to address some of these foundational issues if we really want to solve food. For me, my mentality was, if I'm going to solve food, I can't do it by feeding people there. We have to address these foundational issues.
Mm-hmm.
You've come into it and you've said, we have to do it by feeding people.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me a little bit about what that has looked like from a health perspective, from an impact, a measurable impact perspective, because this is profound for me. And I think there's real lessons in taking small steps to make a difference.
For us, obviously, initially it was just getting food out, because people literally were losing their jobs left and right. And we had people who would wait days and then say, I've never had to ask for anything before, and we don't know where our next meal is coming from. So as we were going along for that first month or so, we started getting letters from the people that we were dropping meals to. And one woman, I'll never forget her letter, said, "I never eaten so many vegetables in my life." She had lost 25 pounds. That was within the first 6 or 8 weeks,
That's
something
right.
like that. Her diabetes was under control and she was off her blood pressure medication. So who knows what she was eating before, but our soups were full of, vegetables from Shalom, kale and zucchini, and they were all pureed. So we called it stealth health. Like, nobody knew that they were getting essentially just this big old vegetable puree, but people loved it. So we started hearing about, these anecdotal stories about the results we were getting. And as we were traveling in the community, we really started to think more about the families. And I started thinking in particular about the kids that we were hitting, because, fast food is such a thing. And when people are working second and third shift and prepping meals isn't a thing, and having the money to buy fresh sometimes isn't a thing. We really started to think about how these families were able to feed themselves. And part of my clinical background was in neuropsychology. And so I think about kids and their brain development. Like when you talk about foundational issues, I talk like back to at birth, prenatal. We have to get that brain development early, because that is what's going to really start to significantly move the entire community needle, is getting kids trained, learning to eat fresh, and that's not something that's put upon them, that's actually, a privilege. That's awesome to be able to do. And it's possible. It's just that all the wires have been kind of crossed in our modern age. I think just the food ways the fast food ways have opened up, and those fresh food ways have kind of gotten bumpy and rutted.
And anyway, it's something that's even more interesting. Kate we all were focusing with families and children. I had a big thing for all the seniors that are on our route, and I would know which ones to deliver to last, because I was going to be there for an hour and a half having a conversation. Pearl Quick, if you're out there, you're one of them.
Yeah.
And I love
Pearl
you very
is,
much.
yeah.
But I would learn so much in here. And one of the people we would deliver to asked if we could deliver to a friend of hers. And she said that she was boiling a chicken on a Monday and eating off it until Friday or Saturday.
And that was pretty much all she had.
That's pretty much all she had to eat. And that got me. And I realized that we had to do something.
We started to, even at that time, kind of in the chaos and the turmoil, that my research brain started going, and I wanted to be able to, collect some kind of data, but it just, we weren't in any position to run any kind of human subject study. And the idea of doing that and trying to write all the other grants that we needed on top of it, I mean, it wasn't what we're made for. So we started, when we could, kind of casting out to some of the hospitals and medical groups to see, and even the community centers. We were trying just to get scrubbed health data. They could pick people randomly, not tell us who they were, just let us drop meals off to them. But again, everything was moving so quickly. And
what's a really great drink. And now we've had a big shout out by some of the researchers at VCU who are doing how food affects cancer, which has been very interesting for us. We did a demonstration with the Richmond Fire Department, one of their firehouses, on plant-based eating. And we are looking to also work with Richmond families to another area of the cancer center to discuss diet, health, obesity, high blood pressure, and all those things, and how our food affects folks, and we'll be able to get real life figures going forward.
The other thing that we found during this, on our for-profit side, we started doing virtual cooking classes. And so with kind of the promulgation of so much of the technology that went out, and a lot of money went to that during COVID to get a lot of households up and online, we found that was a really good way to be able to get to a lot of homes that otherwise we couldn't touch. And so we're working on that, not to just teach people how to cook and eat healthy, but there are studies out there that show that families that come together to cook and sit down to eat, that it's a stress reducer, which helps reduce drug use. It helps reduce violence. It helps, it's not just sitting down and eating and nourishing your body, but you're actually doing better for the mental health of your whole family system when you do that as well. And it's not something, again, in our society these days, people are going. It's not something that a lot of families have time to do anymore. But part of our education thing is trying to gear families at least once a week back to taking the time to do that.
So there's this social component to it that, is missing in a busy society. And you're taking your experience in education and psychology and carrying that over. I'm curious about the experiential side of things, because that's how it all started. It was born out of necessity, but this was an experience business. You guys are obviously going to go back to for-profit. There are going to be people out there that continue to need help. You're going to continue to help them, but we can help everybody by creating a stronger social fabric. What lessons have you guys taken away from the philanthropic effort that you can bring over to the for-profit side of things to improve experiences for people?
What I realized, Will, is that everybody can eat healthy and eat good food. The Whole Foods or the fresh market experience is not just for folks with money. That our folks with disparities or who have challenges financially can eat the same way. And it's just a little bit harder to find. We hope to give folks access, everyone access to the same way we eat for our for-profit side that's back up and running and going strong again. The same way that that they eat for our for-profit side to eat in our nonprofit side, and it hasn't been that hard.
And as far as the experiential, I want to speak to that because we found on our, it kind of goes back and forth between the for-profit and nonprofit. In the for-profit, we teach history, we teach culture, we teach about social issues through the meals that we do. And we found it's like those multiple avenues of learning. People, because they're eating, it's something everyone does. It's a common ground people can meet on, but it's also something that anchors things in people's minds. You remember meals for whatever reason. It just, people like to eat, so they remember what they're doing when they're eating, typically. And so taking that, and Micheal has called it from the beginning, food with dignity. So we're already putting an experience on that this isn't just a handout. This is something that we don't want you to feel like, you're at a soup kitchen. We make it special. We send out flowers with our first deliveries, those first 175, and notes telling people that we were thinking about them and things like that. And so we want to be able to, with partners like Shalom Farms, bring people to the garden to experience farm to table, to have something else that links to that. So it's not just giving your kid a worksheet at school and saying, color in the carrots. Those are healthy, and expecting that child to take it back to the house and say, hey, we need to eat more carrots, because that's not going to work in a big household. But to have a whole family experience where people can share it and share their views of it and kind of move forward from there. It gives them all that same launching pad, so to speak.
I was thinking earlier today, if you were going to eat a meal from anybody other than a trained chef, who would be the best professional to get it from? And I came up with the answer, not having done any research for this show, a neuroscientist, because they understand the multitude of flavors that can be combined and the unique experiences that can create, the new memories that creates, and that cohesion between our perception and reality.
And it's very powerful. It's very powerful.
So you guys have formed some really important partnerships in the community. I know you won't be able to talk about all of them, but I'd love it if you could touch on some of the ones that have been really impactful for driving your operation forward, connecting to more people, and kind of sparking some of the shape of what you guys have now.
I would like to talk about our partnerships. Our partnership with Shalom Farms has been amazing.
Yeah,
I mean, they're just good people doing good things, and they're a great partner of ours. Supplied us with over 9,000 pounds of vegetables this last year, and plan to do a lot more with them going forward. Smithfield has been amazing. Tyson Chicken has been great. Affinity Food Brokers have been amazing, but getting us, supporting and helping us weed between the shortages and the when the food line was broken. Just those are, and the folks at VCU, and especially in the research department, has come together to helping to get those numbers right and be able to get those numbers. That's been the most thing. And then another shout out to the city parks and recs, specifically the folks at the Annie Giles Center and Chris Fulke and the mayor for supporting us and giving us a kitchen to work out of. It has been amazing for us to work with the city and getting things done.
And what's been really nice as well, and there are a few of those partnerships that we can't talk about yet that are bigger and exciting, that are coming up this year, but the kind of, when we went to start a nonprofit in Richmond, and everyone said, are you insane? Do you know how many nonprofits there are in Richmond? And we said, well, we're already doing this. It needs to be done. But the nonprofit community was very welcoming, given how saturated we are with them here in the city. But it allowed us to make the connections that are fueling these partnerships now that we're moving into. We've had these 3 years to really develop not only our programs so that we can, present them to other people, but it's given all of us, again, COVID gave us all the time, so to speak, to get to know each other well enough to really sit and think about how we want to do this to have a greater impact, and not just have 10 of us out there doing different things and hoping they overlap somehow. But it's allowed us to coordinate a lot, and that's been wonderful.
And a big shout out to the Episcopal Church who
Mm.
opened their doors to us when everyone didn't, and when we were new and we were fresh, and they gave us a bunch of kitchens to work with. That was Bishop Goff, particularly, and Bishop Jennifer Brooke, Brooke Davison. They were supportive in all their congregations from a lot of the churches around the area. Were awesome.
Yeah.
You're listening to America's Healthiest City on ESPN Richmond. We are talking today about food, and we have the proprietors of Underground Kitchen and Underground Kitchen Community First, and we're talking about food as a vehicle for health. We don't have a lot of time left in today's show, so I want to kind of take us out talking about, what do you see is coming next, and if you can think of something off the top of your head that you could share with our audience, maybe small ways that anybody could take action to make a difference in improving the collective health of our community, what might those be? And we'll put those on the ideas board on AmericasHealthiestCity.com.
I think volunteerism, volunteering at Shalom Farms or at our commercial kitchen and getting on our list helps so many ways for us to take it to the next step. And donations. This is not a cheap business. And we have a huge staff that we support. And getting it, just getting involved. If you can't do money, you can do time. And I think that's really important to me. Kate, do you have anything?
The only thing else I would say is to spread the word, talk about it to other people. We know there's so many different channels for media these days that if you see something, and the Times-Dispatch, I'll say, has been doing a really nice series on people making a difference in the community. And I try and bring up when I see those, to other people, did you know that this is going on in the city? I think just keeping the conversation going, because one of the things we found when COVID was quote unquote over is that everyone said, well, food insecurity's done. And I know there are tons of other charities that felt that as well. And it wasn't, we still had this population that was food insecure prior to the pandemic, and it just made it worse. So keeping those conversations going, I think allows for, as we came to meet you, it just, those connections get made, and eventually we can come together and work as a team to get this under control.
I think things are definitely changing in the community. Definitely seeing the traction with the newspapers and the media and the stories being told. But taking us out, I want to make sure that folks can get in touch with you so that they can make donations, so they can sign up to volunteer, both individually and as an organization. Where can folks find you guys out there?
They can find us at UGK Community First, all one word, .org. We have more information about what we're doing on that website and a volunteer sign up form, as well as a number to reach me if you're a company and you want to have a group come and work with us.
And for our for-profit, it's THEVUGK.
No,
it's
the Underground.
Oh, that's
Kitchen.
Right. Yeah, I never Googled myself. TheUndergroundKitchen.org to come to one of our fancy, historical, beautiful dinners.
And that's one of the things I want to say really quickly. When Micheal first set up Underground Kitchen that first year, all the proceeds went into the community. And obviously as the business developed, we couldn't do that for a while, but now we take 10% of every ticket sold goes to the nonprofit. So even if you're coming to enjoy a super fancy 6-course dinner, 10% of that goes to help feed your community.
Yes.
Wonderful. Well, thank you guys both so much
Thank
for coming on the show.
Us. Well, it's been awesome.
Yeah, well, we hope to continue to spread the word. Last thing, what's something you guys absolutely need? What's something you guys are looking for in the community that we might be able to connect you with?
We need a tilt skillet.
I don't know what that is.
It's a kitchen thing. Anybody in the food industry would know. It's a tilt skillet. It's a skillet that cooks large portions out of
it cooks about 20 or 30 gallons of soup at a time.
Okay, well, we're going to get you a tilt skillet.
Tilt skillet.
All right. Well, this was America's Healthiest City. Thank you so much for joining us. Please visit AmericasHealthiestCity.com to read the ideas, leave your comments, and share your own ideas with Richmond.